All right, we are recording. All right. Thank you, everyone. Welcome. Tonight we are, I am filling in for Jordan, so you may not recognize me. I am Susan Winkler. I am our technology librarian here at the Champaign Public Library, filling in tonight for Jordan Neal, our career librarian. And so tonight we are hosting Brennon Hightower from Parkland College. She's the Parkland College Career Counselor, and I'm going to go ahead and introduce her in just a moment. But first, I wanted to get you some information about Zoom in case this is your first time in Zoom. Down in the bottom left-hand corner, you should have your volume and speaker button if you need to turn up your volume. In the middle, you should have a chat bubble, and it looks a little bit like a little comment bubble. And that is where you can type in the chat. So if you have questions or comments, feel free to put those in the chat. There's also a raise hand button. So if you have any technical difficulties, feel free to raise your hand, and then I'll see if I can assist you. If you ask a question in the chat, we will hopefully be able to get some of them answered at the end of today's presentation. But if you have something that you want immediately addressed, please let me know, and then I can share that. And we also have a live transcript, which if you see down in the bottom, you should have a, oh, and I need to turn it on for us as well. There is a CC button that is the live transcripts. So I'm going to go ahead and enable the live transcripts for us. If you want to hide those, you can just click on the CC and then hit hide transcripts. Otherwise, I'm going to leave those on for us. Okay. All right. I do also want to let you know that the library is open. We are open for grab and go services as well as computer use. And if that changes, we will put that all up on our website. And I'm going to go ahead and share a couple of slides that Jordan had set up for me. All right, let me go ahead and jump into the slideshow. Oops. Okay. All right, so welcome to the Get That Job series today. And we do want to mention that if you have any questions, we can do a book a librarian consultation with you where we can do a half hour to an hour of individual help for you. You can also reach out to us via live chat and also email us at librarian@champaign.org. And then here is Jordan's information if you need to reach out to Jordan at all. And I'll put this up again at the end too. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing that. And then I'm gonna go ahead and introduce Brennon. So Brennon, thank you for joining us tonight. Very happy to have you here. If you wanna go ahead and let us know what we're gonna talk about tonight.
All right, Susan, thank you for having me. My name is Brennon Hightower, Career Counselor at Parkland College. And this evening, we're going to talk about job search strategies. We're going to talk about, briefly, the cover letter, the resume, and how to utilize LinkedIn. But we're also going to talk about some transferable skills and how you pull those out. So especially if you're a career changer and you're moving from one job to the next. We're also going to talk about, briefly, a Wall Street Journal article that came out maybe like 2 weeks ago that talks about 5 points of things you need to know now to get a job now. So we're going to cover all those things in about 40 minutes.
Excellent.
All right, are you ready for me to go ahead and get started?
Go ahead, yes.
All right, well, thank you. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen to the PowerPoint presentation. In some of the slides, I will read directly from the slides. Some of them I won't. Towards the middle, we will actually jump into LinkedIn and some of these articles that I'm talking about so that you can actually see them and not necessarily just hear me talk about them. So at this moment, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we're going to get into the presentation. All right. I will ask you to have a pen and a notebook ready, and that's because we're going to cover a lot of different things, and some things may be new to you, so you really want to take notes. So for starters, I want to just kind of start out with a little bit about career services at Parkland College. So Career Services offers one-on-one sessions to assist both students and community members in exploring interests, skills, and values as they select their college majors and or career goals. These services include help with LinkedIn, which I'll cover some of that today, resume and cover letter writing and critiques, interviewing skills. We do mock interviews. We do career assessments, they're free. And we also do some job search strategies and planning. So in today's presentation, I do talk about some of the job search strategies, but when we work one-on-one, we really take a deeper dive into a more personalized approach and plan. We also do classroom and community presentations like we are this evening. And then lastly, we have a web page. It's called Remote Career Support. I love the page because if you have questions regarding career guidance and you aren't able to get to an actual person at that time, you can log on to Remote Career Support and get a lot of information there. So once I get out of the presentation a little bit later on, I will bring that page up for you to see. And I can also put the link in the chat box if there are people that are interested in having that. All right, so earlier I mentioned the article from the Wall Street Journal. So I'm going to talk 3 slides about those 5 tips. And this is really where you want to have that pen and paper available. So the article is called Hiring Has Restarted. Here's what you need to know to land a new job now. So let's talk about those 5 points. So the first point is to get your resume in front of a real human being. And this may sound kind of silly, but when you think about it, everything is remote, like so much is remote. Excuse me. So when you're applying for a job, you're likely to be applying on a job search engine like Indeed, for example. And what happens is that application, that resume, that cover letter is not going to a human first. It's actually going through the ATS, which is the applicant tracking, the applicant tracking system. And so to avoid that and get around that, you want to make sure that you're in front of a human. So an example of this could be you find a job that you're interested in. You apply for the job on whatever job board that it is, but then you take your cover letter and your resume, you do your research, find out who's the hiring manager or who's the recruiter or who's in human resources, and get your resume to one of those people. That way, that resume is in front of a human being, okay? The next point that they talk about in the article is work the system, but don't try to game the system. And what that means is that make sure that whatever it is that you're putting in your resume or your cover letter is true. It's authentic, it's true to you, and you're not fabricating anything. I talk about this a lot when we talk about keywords and the resume later on when we talk about LinkedIn. But what I say is that when they suggest keywords to you, if you've done the work, by all means, put those keywords in your resume or cover letter. But if you have not done the work, don't put those keywords in there, okay? So again, work the system, but don't try to game it. So what I pulled out from under that topic was a quote, and it said, "It's important to make sure that we focus on the relevant experience, the relevant words, meaning keywords, but back up your accomplishments about what makes you that best candidate for that role." So just make sure that you're being clear and authentic and you're not fabricating things. Okay, tip number 3 talked about timing. And it said timing is everything. I'm not going to read all of that. I'm just going to kind of give you a little bit about what it talked about in that section. In terms of timing, it talked about your time is valuable. And so you want to get the most out of it. So one of the things that you can do is to let some of the tools do the work for you. And what they mean by that is you have like alerts, for example, on Indeed or on LinkedIn. And so instead of you trying to comb the web every day, trying to find jobs for your personal job search, what you can do is put that industry in or put a couple sample job titles in, click the alert on, and then daily you'll get those alerts so that you aren't spending so much time combing the web trying to find these jobs. And instead, these positions are coming to your email for you to be able to see if that's a good fit for you. Another tip that it talked about is that take a couple of days to review your resume and cover letter, tweak it if you need to, and then go ahead and apply for the job. Because what this says is that a couple of days might be the difference between a job being there or being filled by someone else by the time you apply. And I've seen this multiple times where someone will set up an appointment with me to go over their cover letter and resume for a particular job. But they will spend 3 to 4 days with me going back and forth instead of just applying after maybe a meeting of once or twice. And so what ends up happening is we start a conversation on Monday, they continue to go back and forth, and then by Friday they want to apply, but then the job is no longer there. So they missed out because of timing. So just make sure if you see something out there that you're interested in, you want to make sure that you kind of hop on it. Save the job description, quickly make your tweaks to your resume and cover letter, just making sure that it's specific to that particular job to make sure it shows that you're that ideal candidate, and then apply for the job. I meet with a lot of people and they stop when it's time to apply. And it's like, you've done all this work, don't be afraid, go for it. So once again, timing is everything. So the next slide, we'll talk about those final 2 points in terms of getting hired now. So point 4 is to network, and it's at network, network, network. This bit of information is actually not from this article, but it was from LinkedIn a little while ago, and they put out a new survey. And the survey said at the time, at least 85% of all jobs are filled via networking. That's how important networking is. And so if you don't have LinkedIn, I would highly encourage you to create a profile and begin connecting with people that are in the industry or doing the things that you want to do, okay? Talk to people and let them know that you're interested in particular positions. If there is a company that you're interested in, call, get information, schedule that informational interview, do what it takes to network so that you get your name, your resume, and your cover letter in front of the right people, okay? And then finally, the final point from this article was you don't need to check every box. And what that means is that if you find a job that you're interested in and you're reading through the job description, at the bottom, it typically has minimum requirements needed for the job and preferred requirements needed for the job. The preferred requirements are those nice to have skills. It doesn't mean you have to have all of those skills to apply for the job. So if you just meet the minimum requirements, that's okay. Apply for the job. You don't have to have all of the preferred requirements, okay? All right. Now that we've kind of covered those 5 tips for how to get that job now, let's talk about being prepared, okay? And what do you need to get started in this process? So to get started, let's just say you are ready to apply for a job right now online. You sit down, you're ready, but what do you need? So the common 3 things that you need are, first, your cover letter. I can't stress this enough that it needs to be specific, as well as your resume. In the past, we would apply for jobs and we would have one cover letter that said, to whom it may concern, these are my qualifications, I'm applying for this job, I'm ready for the interview, whatever. And then we would have one resume that was the same for everything, and we would apply for jobs and it would be just fine. Well, times have changed and it's not just fine anymore. Now you have to really show that you are that ideal candidate, and you have to be specific. You have to tailor your resume to the job description and make sure that you're using those keywords. We'll get into a little bit of that later. But before we move on, I want to talk about references. So typically, when you're getting prepared to apply online, you have your cover letter as one document, you have your resume as one document, and then you have your references. I like to put those as a separate document as well. Typically, you are not going to upload that reference document. However, you are going to need the information from it. So if you have that document that has, 3 references on there and their information, it's going to be pretty easy for you to apply online and type in that information, their name, their title, their phone number, maybe their place of employment, and an email address. But before we talk about, typing that in, let's talk about making the ask. So what that means is that if you have people that you plan to use as references, you need to make sure that you ask them first, okay? And the reason why that is important is because you want to make sure that you set yourself up for the best reference possible. And if you don't give that person a heads up, they can't possibly give you the best reference possible. But if you let them know ahead of time, you ask them ahead of time, let them know that you're applying for a certain position, what the position is, what you've been doing lately, things like that. When that company calls to get that reference, they've had time to prepare to give you the best reference possible. I'll give you a quick example, almost like a horror story that happened to me recently. I had an acquaintance who put me down as a reference, but didn't let me know she was putting me down as a reference. We've gone through COVID, we've gone through a lot of different things, and I don't know what she's been doing lately. Okay. And so the reference check comes to me, and it was so hard for me to complete it because I had no knowledge of what the job was. I had no knowledge of what she had been doing, and she put my information in incorrectly. And so it was like a really bad situation that we had to try and, kind of fix. So you just want to be able to avoid those situations and get the best reference possible. So make sure that whoever it is that you're going to put down as a reference, you ask them first, and you make sure that you have correct information for them, the correct spelling of their name, their correct email address, phone number, etc. Okay. Aside from the cover letter, the resume, and the references, you also need to know what kind of job are you looking for, okay? I work with, like I said, a lot of students, a lot of community members, and I get some people that say, I just want a job. That doesn't really help me. I mean, I understand you want a job, but what kind of job? Do you want part-time? Do you want full-time? Do you want remote? Do you want factory? Do you want fast food? There's so many different options. So if you have an idea of what it is that you want to do, it makes the job search so much easier. So by knowing the type of position that you're seeking, you can narrow down that job search. So if you want to be a CNA, for example, you know that you're looking for CNA type positions. Okay, you're already narrowing down that job search. It's going to save on your time because you don't have to scroll through everything. You're narrowing your search and you're only scrolling through those particular positions. In addition to that, you're going to know what keywords to use in your resume and cover letter to get through the applicant tracking system. So if I'm applying, I'm a CNA, I'm applying for a CNA job, I can think of some of the keywords that might be in there, like CPR, patient care, charting, dressings, different things like that. And so those would be some of the keywords that you would want to have in your cover letter, as well as your resume and whatever it is, or however it's written in the job description. Okay, so I talked a little bit about the applicant tracking system, but I didn't really say what it was. So I want to give you just a brief definition of what it is so that you know. An applicant tracking system is software that's used to provide provides recruiting and hiring tools for companies. These systems are known to collect and sort through resumes. So if you're applying for that CNA position and your resume and cover letter has no keywords, nothing relevant or related to CNA, it's going to drop to the bottom. But if you have, like in your professional summary, something related to being an outstanding CNA, and you have these skills and these keywords, you're going to rank higher than someone who doesn't have anything about CNA on their cover letter and resume. So the applicant tracking system is used to filter out the resumes that are a good fit, okay? At the bottom of this, and I'll put this in the chat box as well, this is a link to an article on JobScan. What I love about this article is that it gives you 8 things to know about the applicant tracking system, but at the bottom, it also gives you the opportunity to put in a job description as well as your resume to see if you're a good fit for that position. If you want to try this out on your own, you can. You would just go to jobscan.co and you can do that. And so at the end, if there are people that are interested in this, I will put the link in the chat box. All right, a few more things about the ATS I want you to be mindful of. So use keywords relevant to the position that's found in the job announcement. I think there was some questions maybe. So I'm going to stop, kind of like pause for a minute because I saw the screen kind of flashing.
Yes, we did have a question about
okay.
with the ATS.
Okay.
Do you recommend including a photograph on resumes, or does that interfere with the ATS scanning?
Yes, I would personally, I would not do that. And then the other thing I want to say about resumes is that even when we go into LinkedIn a little bit later, I'll show you how LinkedIn creates a resume for you based on your profile. But what I want to say about that resume is that even though you may not love it, like it's not visually pleasing to you, it's formatted for the applicant tracking system. So it's formatted to get through that system. So what I like to tell people is you might want to use something like that to apply for the positions online. But then when you get to the interview, maybe that's when you want to use your pretty resume and pass that out. So you may want to think about it that way.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. A few more things to be mindful of, and I mentioned this before. Be sure your cover letter and resume are tailored to that specific position. And in order to get that information, you do have to do your research. And I want to talk just a little bit about research. So you don't have to know everything about the company, but you need to know some things, okay? You also need to research yourself and know what it is that you're bringing to the table exactly, okay? What are your skills that you're bringing? What are your experiences? What are you bringing, okay? And I do want to tell you that's one reason why interviews fail, because that particular candidate hasn't done their research. They haven't done their research on themselves. They haven't done their research on the company. And so the interview kind of goes wrong. It kind of goes bad. So you just want to keep that in mind to make sure that you do your research. Okay. All right. So over the next couple of slides, we're going to talk about the cover letter and the resume briefly. The cover letter accompanies your resume to provide additional information on your skills and experience. Additionally, the letter provides detailed information on why you are qualified for that job, okay? I have 2 more slides that I'm going to talk about a few tips for cover letters, but once those 2 slides are over, I want to jump into a PDF that we have from Parkland. It is found on our remote career support page. So if you have questions regarding what should I put in the cover letter exactly, or what should it look like, this cover letter tip sheet is going to help you, okay? Okay, a couple more tips. Don't simply repeat what's on your resume. Instead, you want to include specific information on why you are a strong fit for that particular job that they are hiring for. You want to make a good impression, and you don't want it to be more than 1 page, okay? And lastly, with the cover letter, if an employer requires one, it will be listed in the job posting. But my rule of thumb is this: even if the company doesn't ask for one, you may want to include one anyway. And to me, the reason why is because that cover letter gives you the opportunity to shine. It gives you that additional chance to get in front of that person and explain why you are the ideal candidate for that job. So I don't like people to pass that over. Like, take this as your opportunity to show more of yourself and why you're the ideal candidate. Okay, so I'm going to pause there from the presentation, and I want to show you these cover letter tips. This can be found on Remote Career Support as a PDF. It's downloadable, but it gives you tips such as a cover letter should always accompany a resume. One page, at the most two, 11 to 12 point font, etc. Okay, if it talks about keywords as well, and the applicant tracking system. But later, the back or the bottom, it gives you a sample cover letter, okay, and what should be included in one. So if you need this, know that it is a downloadable PDF found on Remote Career Support, and I can show you the web page here shortly. Okay, now let's briefly talk about the resume. So think about your resume as a concise picture of your skills and qualifications for a specific position. Again, generally it's 1 to 2 pages, depending on your life and work experience. You want to tailor the information for the job announcement, use keywords, and be sure to proofread your resume and cover letter. I would also recommend you hand it off to somebody else that you trust to proofread it as well. I've proofread several, resumes, and there's small things like someone may put accept instead of accept, or accept instead of accept. You just want to make sure that you're catching grammatical errors and things like that. Okay. All right. In previous presentations, one of the questions that I would get when I was doing this presentation is where to search for jobs. So I wanted to make sure that I entered a slide in here that talked about just a few places where you can search for jobs. So if you're unfamiliar with Parkland's job board, Parkland has one. It's called Parkland's College Central Network. You can just type in College Central Network from the search bar on Parkland's main website, and it will take you right there. Students can use it, community members can use it. You just simply register, and you can upload your resume and cover letter if you like, or like a general one. And then you can search for positions on there. Positions are posted Monday through Friday, and there's often so many full-time positions on there. Indeed, as well as other job search engines. LinkedIn. I really want to kind of like beef up LinkedIn, because some people, they don't know that there are jobs on there, and there's so many jobs on there. So many people are getting hired from LinkedIn. So make sure you include that, as you're doing your job search as well. Staffing agencies. I want to make mention that staffing agencies are not just temp services, because I've run into a lot of people and they say, well, that's just a temp service. I need a full-time job, or I need full-time employment. And not all staffing agencies are temp services. And so just make sure that you make the ask when you're working with one. Is this a temporary service, or is this a staffing agency? I'm looking for full-time employment, etc. A lot of these staffing agencies are looking for people to fill permanent full-time positions, but people are just unaware that temp services are not staffing, and staffing are not temp. So just keep that in mind. Another place to search for jobs is the employer's website. Sometimes employers will post job openings only on their website, and you may not find it on LinkedIn, or you may not find it on Indeed. So if there's a company that you really want to work at, go directly to their website and look for their career openings. Okay. It's blinking again, so I don't know if that is like an old blink or a new one. So are there any questions?
I don't see any new questions, though I actually had one for you.
Okay.
How about social media? Do you know what most people say about social media as a place to possibly find a job announcement?
Yes, so I'll use this as an example. Career Services has an Instagram. And on the Instagram, I post typically on Mondays, and I post a lot of job announcements. And so what I'll do is I'll put a picture of that signage, now hiring, we're hiring, and I'll tag the employer, and then like the hashtags or like things that would get people's attention, like job seeker, college student, now hiring, things like that. So yes, go to, don't forget to use social media, especially Facebook and Twitter as well, because sometimes employers post that information on their Facebook page and on their Twitter account as well. One of the things that I'm starting to do with my LinkedIn, for example, is share the job postings that come to our College Central network. That way it's reaching a whole nother audience. So absolutely take advantage of social media too. But I also want to put this caution out there. If you're going to use your personal social media to look for jobs and communicate in their direct messaging, you want to make sure that your profile that you're using is clean. You don't want things that would, I don't know, discourage an employer from wanting to communicate with you or work with you. So you don't want, like crazy things on there. You want to make sure it's clean and, up to date.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So now I want to talk a little bit about LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn because there are just so many different things that you can do with the platform that you may be unfamiliar with. So if you're unfamiliar with LinkedIn, it's a professional platform. It hosts more than 600 million professional profiles, providing you with an unlimited supply of networking connections and job opportunities. These are full-time jobs, part-time jobs, internships, etc. Okay. And earlier we talked about networking as one of the points from the article. So this is an opportunity for you to get to connecting with other people and networking. Okay. Here are some of the helpful LinkedIn features that I'm getting ready to go over in LinkedIn. But LinkedIn has a resume builder. So what it will do is it will take your profile and create a resume for you. This resume is formatted for the applicant tracking system, and it's going to use keywords, okay? And so if you're one of those people that are asking like, well, where do I find these keywords you keep talking about? LinkedIn is going to give you the keywords, okay? So that's a great, benefit to using the resume builder in LinkedIn. It has an interview prep section or feature or tool. And what that does is it allows you to pick an industry that you're going into. They have common questions that are already loaded, and you can practice with yourself or with the tool to practice for the interview. You can search for jobs on LinkedIn, and then there's a open to work box that I will show you that allows recruiters to come to you instead of you, using so much of your time, going to find the jobs. So it kind of points back to one of those last points from the article where it said, make sure you let some of the tools do the work for you. And so this is one of those tools that'll do the work for you. Okay, so before we jump into the last slides, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for just a moment to get out of the presentation. And then I'm going to jump into LinkedIn, and we're going to go over these 4 features briefly, just so that you're aware of, how to use them and how to find them. All right, can you see my profile?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so when you log into LinkedIn, you're probably going to come to your feed. This is your feed. But the first thing that I'm going to do is just go to my profile first. And the first thing I want to do at the profile is we're going to skip all the basic stuff. We're going to move down to open to work. So in this first section, you see an open to work. You're going to click on that pencil. You can put up to 5 job titles in here. Okay, you can put up to 5. You can also put up to 5 job locations in here. Okay. Then if you're open to remote work, you can click that. If you are immediately and actively applying, you're going to want to click that. If you're just flexible and casually browsing, you want to click flexible. And then, like I said, you can choose your job type and click that there. And then you're going to save it. Okay. Now my profile is ready for recruiters to come to it and let me know they're interested in me. Okay. Because I'm open to work. Whenever you are tired of having that open or no longer, open to work, you can go in and turn it off. And this feature is only open to recruiters, so not everyone can see this, okay? Down here at your About section, this is actually going to populate over to your resume as your professional summary. So if you're going to put that career objective or professional summary at the top of your resume, this is where that goes and where it's going to be placed on your resume. Below here is where you're going to fill out your information, your experience, your education, licenses and certifications. Volunteer experience will not show up, and then your skills, okay? So typically you want to put at least 5 skills under your skills and endorsements, but the resume builder will take 10, okay? So now that your profile is complete, we're going to go to the resume builder. So to get to that, we're going to click on jobs. Underneath more, we're going to click on resume builder. So now I want to create a resume from my profile. It's asking me for my desired job title. I'm going to put in career counselor and apply. So just like that, LinkedIn has created me a resume based on my profile that's suitable for the applicant tracking system. Now, this looks rather long, okay? And so we want it to be 1 to 2 pages. So what I can do is click on the pencil and delete things that I no longer want on there. I can delete anything that's just, I just don't want on there because maybe it's not a good fit, okay? And I want to shorten my resume, okay? So I'm going to delete some things, okay? And I'm showing you this because the changes are only made to this particular resume. It doesn't change anything on your profile, okay? You can label the resume here. All the resumes that you create are stored here. No one can see them but you. When you're ready, you can download the resumes and use them as you see fit. Over to the right here, what has happened is that LinkedIn has scanned all the different job descriptions of career counselor. And so now it's saying, Brennan, I found these keywords in your resume: career counseling, job search strategies, resume, and job coaching. That's great. However, we suggest these additional keywords: recruiting, career development, human resources, and leadership development. So then I have to ask myself, Brennan, have you done this work? Do you have this experience? If the answer is yes, I need to figure out where can I put that and how do I reword it into my resume or cover letter. If I do not have these keywords and these skills, here's what I can do. I can put in my cover letter that I'm aware that this position asks for or calls for experience in recruiting and career development. Although I don't have this experience, I'm teachable and willing to learn. So what that does is it allows me to put a couple more keywords into my cover letter, but it also lets them know like my authenticity. Like I'm letting them know I'm upfront. Like I don't have this experience, but I'm teachable. I'm willing to learn, So I've just let them know more about myself, but I've also put some other suggested keywords in my cover letter. Okay. If you want to get fancy, there is a premium version where you can unlock more keywords. To me, I just use the free version and I'm okay with that. Down here is just what I've been saying earlier, is that the LinkedIn resumes are formatted to be compatible with the typical resume screening software used by recruiters, which is the applicant tracking system. Okay, so that is pretty much a brief on how to build your resume on LinkedIn. Now I'm going to go back to the job feature and point out two additional things here. So if you're searching for a job, you're just going to go to jobs. You can search by title, skill, or company, city, and state. Okay. Here's the job alerts. Remember, you want to make sure you're letting these tools do the work for you so you can put on your alerts there. And then you can just search for additional jobs that come up based on your profile or based on what you've shared in your open to work. The last thing that I want to show you is the interview prep. And so here, as I said earlier, you can click on categories or the industry. They're going to have common questions for each industry, and you can kind of practice with yourself or with the tool here and get feedback. So there are a lot of different features that are really neat in LinkedIn that can help you with your job search. So it can build your resume. You can be open to work so that recruiters can come to you. You can use the interview prep. You can search for jobs, and it also has those keywords on there to kind of help take the frustration out of things and just kind of give you the keywords. Okay, so I am going to click out of LinkedIn, and I have some other pages up that I wanted to show briefly. So earlier I mentioned JobScan and the article about 8 things you need to know about applicant tracking systems. This is where that link goes to. So it gives you information on what an applicant tracking system is, how it filters the information. And then down here at the bottom, I said you can paste in your job description and resume to see if you're a match for the job. So you can try this just to see how things match up. I tried this myself with a very old resume and put it for career counseling, and I think I had like a 20% match. And then when I put in my updated resume, it was like much higher, like closer to like 70%. So you can kind of play around with this to see how your actual resume would go through an applicant tracking system based on the job description that you're interested in. Okay. I also talked about remote career support at Parkland. This is that webpage. So if you're interested in booking an appointment with career services, you can click on this link and it will take you to bookings, and you can choose the service that you're interested in, and then we would meet on Microsoft Teams. If you're interested in a career assessment, you can do so here. Here's some additional information for job seekers, some companies that are hiring, some job search engines, local staffing firms, like I talked about earlier, the difference between staffing firms and temp services. So some of that information is here. Some tips on resume assistance here. So earlier I talked about the resume. I didn't show you anything, but the PDF is here for tips. And I did show you the cover letter and the sample cover letter here. And then lastly, here's some information on interviews, as well as using LinkedIn. And then we talked about media. And so here is our career services on Instagram link here. So I'm going to exit out of here, and I'm going to share my screen and jump back into the presentation. I have about 6 more minutes of information, and so we'll kind of wrap things up here shortly. So one of the last things I want to talk about is transferable skills and essential workplace skills. What are they and how can you use them? So transferable skills are proficiencies that are useful in a variety of jobs and industries. They can be used to position your past experience when applying for a new job, especially if it's in a different industry. So what exactly does this mean? So I put a little bit of information here to kind of dig a little deeper. So first I have 12 essential workforce skills on the left. So communication, decision-making, flexibility. These are all things people look for in the workforce in terms of skills. These hiring managers, managers, this is what they're looking for in the ideal candidate. But when you drill down, you can kind of come up with more of those transferable skills that you can use on your resume and cover letter. So the first one I took as an example was just communication. What all transferable communication skills can we pull from that? So on the right, I've given you like a brief list. So active listening, written communication, verbal communication, confidence, giving and receiving feedback, nonverbal communication, responsiveness, public speaking. So these are all forms of communication, and you can kind of pick out what works for you. What transferable skills do you have? For myself, if I was doing this, I would say active listening, because when I work with people one-on-one, I have to be quiet and I have to pay attention and I have to listen to what they're saying so that we can figure out a solution and move forward. I would say written communication, because when we're done, I create a follow-up of all the information and recap the information, and it has to be written well in order for them to understand it. I would also say verbal communication, because I have to be able to verbally communicate to get the information across. So you can pull out, what transferable skills that you have in each of the essential skills to put on your resume and cover letter. And so at the bottom of this, I have an article that I wanted to share. It's actually from Indeed. So I'm going to bring that up. But I also want to say that in this link, I really love it because there's also videos to go with it. And so if you like to watch instead of reading so much information, this link is very helpful. So here it is right here. So it's Indeed's career guide, and it talks about transferable skills, the definitions and examples, but also some video footage as well. So under communication, here was my example here, and here are some of those transferable communication skills here. But in each of those essential skills, they have some additional transferable skills underneath. So you could take your time and you could read through this and pick out those that resonate with you to put on your own resume and cover letter. Okay. All right. And then finally, you want to make sure that you are saving your information. Save your documents in one place, because the most frustrating thing is to sit down and apply for a position. They're asking you for your information and you don't have anything ready. You may have a cover letter in your email, and you may have a resume on a flash drive, and then you may have your references in a Google Doc somewhere. With everything being scattered, it's going to cause frustration. But if you have everything that you need in one folder on your desktop or on a flash drive or in your Google Drive, it's going to make the process move smoothly. And by doing this, it will allow you to complete the process without having to stop, save, exit, and return later, because that can cause a lot of frustration. And the last thing you want is more frustration on top of a job search. Okay. All right, so that pretty much wraps up all that I wanted to discuss about job search strategies, some of those transferable skills, a little bit on cover letter, resumes, references, what you need to know now to get a job, and some of those essential features that are on LinkedIn. Does anyone have any questions or anything that they would like to share, or anything new that stood out in today's presentation?
And if you'd like to speak your question, just let me know by raising your hand, and I can unmute you so that you can ask out loud if you'd like. I have a quick question for you about references.
Okay.
Is it better to provide a work email address for a reference, or do you normally suggest people reach out and then ask the person which contact information they want to give you?
Yes, I would ask the person what contact information that they want to give, because I've asked for references myself, and in several instances, I thought they were going to give me their work information and they gave me personal information. Mm-hmm. So I would definitely make the ask.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Okay. Okay, doesn't look like we have any other questions at the moment.
Okay.
Would anybody else like to share some of their experiences or thoughts about the presentation? I appreciate that I did not know until just now that Parkland actually has career services available for the community too.
Yes. So I work with a lot of community members, not just students. So especially during COVID, because there were so many career changers, you know.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We do have a question. How do you explain a gap in employment and note this on your resume?
Mm-hmm. I like to use the cover letter, the cover letter for that information. I'll give you an example. So for me, I have continuous work history. However, I did stop for 2 years to go back and get my master's degree. And so there was a gap for 2 years on there. I left the gap on the resume, but then I explained it in the cover letter briefly. So I think if you touch on it in the cover letter, you can explain further in the interview if necessary. And that's one of the reasons why I really love the cover letter, because it gives you that whole page to get out additional information that, you know, you may not be able to fit on a resume.
Okay, we have another question. What do you do when you don't have a lot of professional references, especially if all your supervisors no longer work at your previous place of employment that you've listed?
Okay. My first thing that I would do is to see if I could find those previous managers or supervisors by way of LinkedIn, for example. Just personal experience. I was in a situation where, I don't know, it was for a certification or something. I needed to get a hold of a previous supervisor because I had so much work history there. She was no longer at that place of employment, but I was able to find her on LinkedIn, connect, and get what I needed. So definitely, again, that comes with doing your research, you know, and I would definitely take advantage of LinkedIn as well. As far as not having some of those additional professional references, you know, I would really think about that, you know, because I'm pretty sure there's somebody, you know, in your circle, you know, that you could use that maybe you've done a job for, you know. Another example is my son is just now starting to go to work, and he's never had a job before. And so he had to come up with professional references, but it's been hard because of COVID, and he's not playing sports and in school and doing all these things he used to do, and couldn't get a hold of those people that he used to, you know, be around. And so we had to say, okay, what else have you done and what other people are in your life? And so he's done some you know, taking the garbage out for some neighbors. He's raked some leaves for some family members and things like that. And so we had to go to that next level of reaching out to the people he had done like weekend work for, you know. So I would definitely just search your circle to find out what all have you done and who could you use, or who did you do some work for. And it doesn't have to be like full-time employment work. You know, just did you collaborate with someone? Did they work with you in a certain capacity? Were you teammates for something?
Excellent, thank you. Another question is, do you recommend calling the company who is hiring directly at the time you submit your application so that you're introducing yourself in person via the phone in our current situation?
I've never had that question before. I don't see that it could hurt anything. I mean, I guess that would be personal preference. I will say that I have had people apply for a position online and then email, once they did their research, find who the hiring manager was or human resources, and then email them to give them their cover letter and resume. And I guess it would be the same thing if you called to introduce yourself and said, you know, hey, you know, I applied for a certain position. May I be, you know, may I send my resume and cover letter to you as well? I don't think it could hurt anything, you know, because then you're making that personal connection. And your goal is to get in front of a human. So.
Thank you. Other questions? Looks like everyone's finding it has been very helpful.
Awesome.
All right.
All right. Well, if you have like additional questions, you can always find me on the Remote Career Support webpage. My email address is there, and there's a lot of helpful information on that page. It also links to Parkland's College Central Network, Indeed, Pathway U, and a lot of other helpful resources.
Excellent. And are you willing to share a copy? Is the presentation that you did today, is that also up on the career, the Parkland career page?
It's not, but I can email it to you.
Okay, great. All right. Other questions? Well, this has certainly been helpful for me, even though I'm not currently searching for a job. I always like knowing what's new, and I think especially right now, online is definitely the new way for everyone to make all of those contacts and be networking and everything else. So, very good. All right. Well, if we don't have any other questions, we'll go ahead and, oh, you know what? I forgot to turn my camera back on. I'll put me back in here too. There you go. I always like to put myself back in there just to do a nice waving of goodbye, and want to say thank you so much, Brennon, for coming and speaking to us tonight. And it was great to meet you and have you come and speak and give us lots of good information.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. All right, everyone. I do want to, oh yes, and I should share Jordan's slides here real quick for the upcoming information. So if I can, I'm going to go ahead and just share this. This is the rest of the upcoming workshops for the rest of March. So if you're interested, we'll have a resume basics workshop on March 23rd. And then on March 30th will be our tech tips for your job search, especially as we were just talking about online being the way most things are going right now. Some interview tips and some stuff about audio and things like that. So I wanted to share that. And then if you're interested, you can always book a librarian to schedule a consultation with one of our experts here at the library. We do also have a live chat when the library is open, and you can always email us at librarian@champaign.org. Okay, I'll go ahead and stop sharing that. All right. Well, I want to say thank you again, and hopefully we'll have you back sometime in the future.
Sounds great. Have a good evening.
You too. Bye, everyone.